Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kyndra Brooks and I'm committed to encouraging, challenging, and empowering young women, wives, and mothers to be who God called us to be. So I don't know what my hair is doing. Okay, I just got a haircut, so it's like still trying to figure out how I want to part it. I usually been just parting it down the middle, but we're just gonna go with it. Okay, so today, first of all, let me just say, I feel like my last video was literally like, I'm gonna start posting from now on, and that was like before my son was born, so at least what, almost 5 months ago. It's been busy. Honestly, I'm not gonna say I've been busy the whole time. It's just like I was like putting it off and like, you know, whatever. No excuses. With that being said, I want to be on here and I want to be posting for you guys, and I want to be like sharing my journey and my life. And by the way, if you hear noise in the background, that's my husband playing with my children, because it would have been in here if that wasn't the case. Okay. Yeah, I want to be making videos for you guys, and I want to encourage, challenge, and empower women, wives, and mothers, right? That's my whole thing. Because at the same time that I feel like I'm encouraging, challenging, empowering you guys, I'm encouraging, empowering, and challenging myself. Like, I am on this journey with you guys as a mother, as just a woman, a wife. And so my intention is to be like posting content and like just being consistent with it. It's just a matter of like discipline and like really buckling down. I know not everyone follows me on Instagram, not everyone is subscribed to me on YouTube, so it's kind of like I need to be consistent on all my platforms, just because you never know who you can reach on what platform, and YouTube had my heart from the start, so I definitely want to be more consistent on YouTube for sure. Good thing about it is I'm just filming, like, unless it's like videos like this where it's like sit down videos, but like for the most part I'm literally filming my life, what I'm already doing anyways. With that being said, with this long 3.5 minute intro, today's video, as you guys can see, I'm going to be talking about my pros and cons with a hospital birth and my pros and cons with a birth center birth, and kind of like the differences with that. I want to start off with a disclaimer too, because I know that one, not everyone has the option to choose one way or the other for multiple different reasons. In this video, my intention is not to like tear you down if you've had a hospital birth or make you decide one way or the other. I just know what it was like for me. Everyone's experience is going to be different, and not everyone is the same in how they want their birth to go. So take what you want from this video, and I hope this helps you guys figure out which option you guys want to choose, or if you're just like not even pregnant and you just want to like plan for the future. I was literally the same way. So without further ado, let's start off with like the hospital pros. So it made me feel very secure knowing that I was in a hospital, and if God forbid like an emergency happened, I felt like secure that like, okay, I'm already in the place I need to be, so I don't have to worry about like, you know, driving 30 minutes away, you know, a life-threatening situation were to happen, which a lot of that is just like my first time mom, like nerves kicking in. Like, I've never done this before, and my mom too, like, she never given birth outside of a hospital, she's never given birth without medication, and so she was kind of the person I was like going off of, even though I already knew at this point I'm like a natural fanatic, and you guys are gonna realize this as I'm like talking in this video, but I already knew I wanted to do it without medication, and I was honestly really wanting to not even do it at a hospital altogether. But last minute, I was like, you know what? It's my first time doing it. Let me just do it at a hospital, because at least I'll feel secure if God forbid something were to happen. So that was one pro, like you're already in the place if something were to go wrong. Pro tip, do not go into it thinking there's a possibility something can go wrong, because what I've noticed with giving birth now with medication and without medication, going into it with, oh, something can go wrong, personally cause more tension and therefore more pain. But by all means, if you want to feel more secure, girl, go to the hospital, like literally. Second pro was there's pain relief on hand. Like, if you decided like going into it you don't want medication, and then you get there and you realize maybe I do want medication, it's there on hand. There's only like maybe a couple reasons why you wouldn't be able to, but like for the most part, hospitals are very much like, here's your medication. They're already like going into it assuming you want medication, so it's really not going to be much of an issue. It's right there, it's already on hand. You might have to wait like 30 minutes for the anesthesiologist to come in if you're getting the epidural or something like that. But if you know that your pain tolerance is low, or you know that you're going to be scared and that's going to cause even more pain, I would consider going to the hospital. Another pro that I wrote down, and I'm kind of writing pros like generally universal pros. I also wrote down pros that were like specifically a pro for me, so keep that in mind. But the third one that I put was, oh, I remember being very like taken care of in the hospital after I gave birth. Like a nurse was always there, like watching me, helping me to the bathroom, check in on me with like, if I've made a bowel movement or like peeing, and just like helping me breastfeed. Like I remember there was someone always there, like even nurse changes and stuff like that. And I remember they even wanted me to stay another night just for the heck of it, but obviously there wasn't any medical reason for me to spend the night again, so I only spent one night there. But like they want you well informed with like taking care of your new baby and taking care of you and your postpartum body and all of that kind of stuff. So that was one thing that I really liked about the hospital that I went to. By the way, I went to Kyndra. That was definitely a pro. Another one that I put was like logistical things. It's a lot easier to do like the whole birth certificate and like all of that. I'm pretty sure you can just like schedule it then before you leave, which the birth center does too, but that's like later on like your 2-week or 6-week postpartum. Kind of depends on what birth center you go to too, but that was just my experience. My birth center midwife ended up just mailing all of that information to me. It was more like prolonged at the birth center, whereas at the hospital, like all that information was dealt with within the first like 24 hours of me giving birth. So that can be considered a pro for some people. And then also the last thing I put was it was covered by my insurance. Usually hospitals is covered by like most insurances and stuff like that. So that was one thing, like there was really no out of pocket expenses. But if you don't have insurance, then it's gonna be really expensive. So that can be a con depending on if you have insurance or if you don't have insurance, or if your insurance covers the hospital that you're gonna be staying at. But mine did, so I didn't have to worry about any out of pocket expenses. As far as the pros for the birth center, one thing I had written down was I had complete say over my birth plan. And so at the hospital, I more like kind of gave it to them. That no one really told me like, let's go over your birth plan, let's talk about your birth plan. It was more just like I kind of wanted to give it to them because I knew that I had an ideal way that I wanted to give birth. And the birth center, they had a whole appointment talking about how I wanted it done, like anything they needed to know beforehand, left up to me how I wanted to do it. If I asked them like their advice or what they suggested, they would give me that, but it was by no means like this is how you're gonna do it. It was literally left to my desires, what I felt most comfortable with and all that, which I really, really loved, because that's something I felt like was not the case in my personal experience at the hospital. And then another thing that I put down was, so for example with that, like I got to choose if I wanted to do a water birth or if I didn't want to do water. If I wanted to be left alone for the whole birth process, I was able to do that, or if I wanted someone there the whole time like holding my hand or whatever, which that's more of like a doula role. But like I feel like I felt so just like comfortable where I know if I would have asked them, they would have been completely fine with that. Like my midwife was so accommodating, so sweet, and I got to know her and like build a relationship with her. That's the other thing I didn't write down. With hospitals, it's kind of hard to say who is going to be there for you when you give birth. Like kind of depends, because sometimes they're on call or they're not there when you go into labor. So it's like the person that you've been seeing and all your appointments may not be the person that you end up giving birth with, if that makes sense. Whereas at the birth center, all my appointments were with my midwife, and my midwife was the one that was there when I gave birth. Of course, there are some times when she has a life too, where there's gonna be a time when she may not be available, but she gave me like options of other midwives that I could just call up if by chance she's not available by the time I am giving birth. But she was very communicative with that. Like I remember she texted me like, literally 3 weeks before it would even be considered in the range for me to give birth, like 37 plus weeks. Like, oh, I'm gonna be out of town for like the weekend at a wedding. Here's some numbers just in case. Like, she was very good at communicating. And so I definitely felt like even if I wasn't going to be able to birth with her, which I could tell she really desired to be the person to like assist in the birth of her patients. But even if she wasn't there, she gave you options of other midwives and their style of how they do things. Anyways, I also was able to do things like pick my own position, that I wanted to push in, that I wanted to labor in. The only time I heard my midwife tell me what to do, which it wasn't even telling me what to do because I asked her, is when I asked her for advice, like what positions can I be doing right now in order to like allow the best possible position for the baby to be coming down as I'm having contractions. And she would give me like different suggestions of positions I can do while I'm laboring in order for it to, you know, go by quicker and more efficiently. By no means am I saying like they're more, not even there, but they definitely let you just like do you and what your body wants to do. That's something I've noticed with my birth center. Another thing that I had written down was there was no unnecessary interventions. There's no like pulling the baby's head out like while I'm pushing, which I believe happened with my daughter. No excess monitoring and asking me all these questions when I'm literally in the middle of a contraction, or like I know she did one like when I first got there, hearing the baby's heartbeat, and then one other time when I was like in the tub already, but that was literally the only intervention she did, and she definitely made sure to ask before she did it. And I totally felt comfortable saying no if I needed to say no, and she wouldn't have felt any sort of way by me saying no. Whereas I feel like at the hospital, it's kind of like different. Like I said, with my experience, they kind of just assume that you're gonna just listen to them no matter what, and this is what it is. They assume that that's why you're there, is because you want them to kind of do everything the way that they've known how to do, and they don't really give you that option to advocate for yourself if you didn't want that. Or if you did, it would, I don't know, it just feels like uncomfortable to like advocate for yourself in the hospital, because they're kind of just like, this is what it is and this is what it's always been and this is what we're gonna do type of vibe, if that makes sense. Another thing I pro for the birth center was that the midwife was there to guide, not tell me what to do, which I kind of already touched on. And she really just let my body do what it naturally wanted to do. I didn't feel fearful though, because I didn't have someone there telling me, okay, this is what's happening, this is what we need to do next, this is what, turn over the side. Like, because she let me kind of just do what felt right in the moment, unless I asked for her assistance or guidance, that made me feel very comfortable, because there was no like stress where it's like my body feels right doing one thing but I'm being told to do something else. That wasn't the case in my birth center experience, so that was something I really liked. I got to the birth center and I was already 8 centimeters dilated, and I would have never thought I was 8 centimeters dilated already, just because I literally felt like this is like early labor, it's not even that bad yet. Like, and when she told me I was 8 centimeters, I was like, what? Like, there's no way. But I really credit that to the fact that I was listening to like Christian hypnobirthing, so it was calming me down, and I was at home for the majority of my labor apparently, because I was already 8 centimeters when I got there. And so I was like very relaxed in a relaxed environment, and like listening to these affirmations over me kept me in a relaxed state, in a relaxed mindset. Because when I tell you giving birth is all in your head, like it's literally all in your head. If you're scared, you're gonna be in more pain. If you're not, if you're more relaxed, it's gonna be more of a relaxing like experience. At least that's how it was for me. But yeah, I got there and I was 8 centimeters dilated already, and then there was a smooth transition from being at my house to the birth center. There was no loud beeping and all different people coming in and out. It was literally like just as calm, if not calmer. In the birth center, it was very quiet, the lights were dimmed. So that brings me to my next point. I felt very comfortable because like you're allowed to have candles, you're allowed to have music, you're allowed to listen to your affirmations or whatever you have, and like fix the lighting if you want it dimmer, if you want it brighter, whatever. It was very, very like accommodating to make me feel as comfortable as possible, which I liked. So now I'm gonna go over all the cons for the hospital birth. So I had my daughter in the hospital in 2021, August of 2021. So COVID was still kind of happening, I guess, and no one was allowed in the hospital with me until I was officially admitted, which can take hours, by the way, when you're in the hospital, because it's kind of like, it's not a first come, first serve type of vibe. If you've been waiting there for like 10 hours, but someone comes in and they need an emergency C-section, obviously they're gonna tend to the person that needs an emergency C-section over you who's been waiting there for 10 hours. So I remember I was waiting there from like 7 in the morning till like 10, 11 in the morning. And then that's when someone finally came out and they were like, so listen, we're still really busy, but we ended up calling another Kaiser for you to go in, and they have a room ready for you already, so you can just go to that one, which was fine because it was only like 15 minutes away. So we ended up going to that one, and then we still had to wait like an hour or two, and then I was finally seen. And then I wasn't really fully dilated enough for them to officially admit me, so no one could be in there still at that point, like not even my husband or anything. And then so she kind of was just like, you can either go home or you can walk around a little bit more until you're a certain dilation, which I think you had to be like 6 centimeters dilated for you to be officially admitted, and I was like 4.5 or something. And so I was walking around, and then they checked me again, and I think I was at 6 centimeters. So they're finally able to get into a room, and then they finally called him in, and I actually had someone there with me, which I believe for me personally created a lot of that stress and that like more tension in my body. Not having someone there and doing this alone, not to mention it was my first time ever giving birth. So I think that caused a lot of my fear to start coming in, which caused more tension, which caused more pain. Yeah, that was one con. And then even still, I could only have one person in there. Obviously, it varies hospital by hospital, and we're like kind of out of that whole like restrictions with COVID and everything. So rules might have changed, of course, by now, but I know that they limit the amount of people. Like, you're not going to be allowed to have 20 people in your hospital room. I know that. COVID or no COVID, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to like, you're gonna have to switch off and stuff like that. And so I wasn't even able to do that, though. Back in the COVID days, I wasn't allowed to switch off either. It was like once that person left, they weren't allowed to come back in. So that was a con for me for sure. Whereas my birth center, like literally if I wanted 20 people in there, 20 people could be in there. I didn't personally want 20 people in there, so there wasn't 20 people in there, but like my sister was able to come in, my mom was there, my husband was there, and then my brother ended up coming in afterward, my dad ended up coming. So it was like no issues there whatsoever. Another con that I put for the hospital was it was hard to stay relaxed because there were so many nurses coming in and out asking you questions, hooking you up to the monitor. I remember like there was a lot of beeping going on, and every time it beeped, it was just because like your IV was like acting up or whatever. So like the nurses had to come in and turn it off for you. And then there's a lot of just checking and like bells and whistles and like straps, and like it's just not comfortable. You get like this thin of a blanket that you have to cover you up, and you're in like some small bed, and like you just have to stay there because you're hooked up to all these IVs. So it's like you can't really walk around in labor if you wanted to, or if you did, you have to like literally like throw the wires behind you and start walking. Like every time I had to go to the bathroom, I had to do that. So it was just a lot. It was very hard to get comfortable. And I noticed with birth, now that I've had a birth naturally with no medication at the birth center, being relaxed is key. Like relaxing your mind and relaxing your body is what's going to make those contractions easier. But if you're like uncomfortable, you're scared, you're going to tense up, and then it's going to hurt even more. So yeah, it was harder to get comfortable for sure at the hospital. Another thing I put was it was harder to advocate for myself. Like I said, I knew I wanted a certain birth plan. I didn't want to like push on my back. I wanted delayed cord clamping, and then I wanted to like let my body push on its own. I didn't want like someone there like yanking the baby out, or like, okay, push now and hold your breath and do this and that. Like I just wanted my body to do it how it naturally felt to do it, if that makes sense. And it's not that I couldn't say anything. I just felt like I couldn't say anything, if that makes sense. Like those of you who have given birth in a hospital, you may know what I'm talking about. Like I just felt like the midwife or the doctor, whoever is giving birth, even the nurses, like they think that you're going there to completely like put your whole life and your whole baby's life in their hands, which you are in a way, right? But like put all of your trust in them and none of the trust in you, because you don't have a degree, you don't have like you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, so you're not gonna know as well as they do as far as what you should be doing, how you should be birthing and all that stuff. So like the whole trusting your body, letting it do what it already knows how to do naturally, didn't feel like it was a thing when I was at the hospital. Like I mentioned previously, I'm very like a natural fanatic. So if my body wants to give birth a certain way, like if I feel like I need to breathe, take deep breaths and blow out as I'm pushing, I feel like I should do that because that's my body telling me that it needs oxygen and it needs to carry oxygen to my baby as I'm pushing. And this is just an example. And then they told me like every time I was about to push, hey, like hold your breath, take a deep breath. And like I had like no energy to push because I had no air, like I had no oxygen after like an hour of pushing. So I feel like if it was up to me, I would be like pushing. But anyways, all that being said, like I just feel like I'm not saying that you can't advocate for yourself, because you can. It's just gonna be a lot harder because that's not really what's expected of you, if that makes sense, to advocate for yourself, especially if you're like me, where you want it like you want to stand up and give birth or something weird. Like they're very like on your back, you're probably gonna have an epidural, we're gonna coach you through your pushing, stuff like that. So if you want that sort of birth, then I would definitely suggest you going to the hospital, versus you just want to let your body do whatever you want. You're probably going to be more satisfied with a birth center or like a home birth setting type of birth. Last thing I put for a con for the hospital birth was, it was kind of like fear inducing, if that makes sense, because I remember I was pushing for like an hour and I got the epidural, by the way, which I just want to say, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten the epidural if I would have been relaxed, if I would have been more comfortable, if I would have had a support system there with me laboring. Because by the time my husband was able to even come in, I kind of already decided, like shortly after, I already decided like, yeah, I'm just gonna get the epidural. Whereas with the birth center, first of all, there wasn't an epidural even if I wanted one. I didn't want one. I was going into it not wanting one, and I was very relaxed, very comfortable. I had my support team. And the thought of an epidural didn't come until like maybe the pushing part or something like that. But like it was so quick that it was like I was very satisfied with the fact that I didn't get an epidural. But anyways, that's another story. Like I said, if you guys want to know like my birth story, like whether the one, like both of them, or the one at my birth center or the one at the hospital, I could definitely do that as well. Like I was saying, it was very like fear induced. I remember when I was pushing for like an hour, like telling me to hold my breath every time, and then because I was holding my breath, like I'm pretty sure that caused my daughter's heartbeat to start dropping. So we're like, okay, you really want to hurry up and get this baby out because, you know, the heartbeat's dropping. I know Kaiser's very quick to like C-section time, you know, so that caused even more fear in me, of course, just stuff like that. And then it was kind of like when I asked, because I felt like I had to ask if I could birth on my back, it was like, oh no, like, you know, this is how we do it, and we'll see when the midwife gets here if she'll allow that. And then I remember I even told my doctor that in the hospital, like, okay, because I heard that, you know, it's easier to tear when you're on your back, and she's like, oh no, that's not true, oh, you heard wrong. So it's kind of like you get shut down easy. And like I said, this literally varies. It depends on like the doctor that you get and the nurses you get and the hospital that you're in and all that. But like I said, this is just my personal experience and why like I really didn't enjoy my hospital experience. But like I said, it can be a completely different experience for you. But it's good to like go into it knowing these things just in case. That was all of the cons for the hospital. And then as far as the cons for the birth center, one of the things I put was like everything was out of pocket because my insurance doesn't cover it. And I'm pretty sure it's like limited to like what insurances actually cover a home birth or a birth center. So everything was out of pocket. And then like I said, I had a son for my birth center, so they don't do circumcision. I haven't circumcised him yet, but if you had a son and you want to circumcise him, I believe most birth centers don't offer that. I could be wrong, but my personal birth center didn't offer that. So you have to go like out to like another place to do that. I switched insurances too, so now it's like out of pocket costs for that circumcision too. I'm sure you would be able to do like circumcision at like a hospital that's covered by your insurance, but as far as like the birth center appointments and the birth itself at the birth center is all out of pocket, which in my opinion, I'd rather spend money on an experience like that, felt like just like an investment rather than like I just spent like a lot of money, because it was worth it to me. But if that's gonna be like a deal breaker for you, like I'm kind of like in the middle, in between, and then the fact that you gotta pay out of pocket for it is just gonna be like the last straw, then You might want to consider that too. But another thing that I put for a birth center con is, this may or may not be obvious, but there's no medication, like as far as like epidurals and stuff like that. I know mine had like, I think it was like laughing gas. If it wasn't laughing gas, it was like some sort of gas that's like in like a tank, and like you put it over your mouth. I didn't use that personally. Like when I thought to like use it, I was like, just like, no, that's just gonna distract me. I just need to focus right now. By the time that that even came to mind of using it, but they're very limited on like pain relieving type of things for the most part, at least mine was. So, but that was completely fine with me, like I said, because I wanted to do a natural birth, like unmedicated. But if that's something that you're gonna want to do, then you might want to consider that. Also, there's like other like natural pain relieving things that I did. Like I had a couple combs and I put them in my hands. I didn't really like that, but I gave birth in like warm water, which may or may not help you depending on like how your body works. It definitely relaxes you though, regardless. I just didn't fight my body. I just like let it kind of happen. And I noticed when my contractions that I had, if I fought it, it definitely hurt worse than when I was just more like letting loose. But yeah, so that could be a con if you want to have like a medicated birth. Most birth centers aren't going to offer that. And then those are basically all of my cons for the birth center. So now that we're 42 minutes in, which is not going to be 42 minutes for you guys because I'm literally going to cut this down. So that is all of my hospital and birth center pros and cons. I really hope this video helps you guys in making a decision for what you guys want to do on your future birth or birth that you're about to do, whatever the case may be. But in conclusion, if I were to give birth again, I definitely preferred me personally because I love allowing my body to do what it wants to do. I'm definitely more on like the natural side of things, and just the way everything kind of panned out in each experience. I definitely prefer, me personally, the birth center experience. Yeah, so for me personally, I definitely choose the birth center. But like I said, everybody's different. If you know that you're gonna be you know, like very fearful or whatever, and you think a hospital birth is going to be better for you, then by all means. I'm not here to tell you to give birth at a birth center if you think it's not right for you. At the end of the day, I think you need to make the decision that's right for you, and only you know truly what that decision is. With that being said, I believe all of us can give birth without medication. But it's definitely, like I said, it's very mental if you go into it in the wrong mindset. Like, I don't want you guys to like do that and then like regret it. So I think for me though, I was very prepared for it because like I said, I wanted to do that even with my first birth with my daughter, but because last minute I backed out or whatever. But with that being said, I've had like a long time to process this and to prepare for it mentally because it's very mental. So when I actually did give birth to my son in a birth center without medication, I've had time to digest and like process and like prepare for that it wasn't as bad as it would have maybe have been if I didn't prepare mentally and all that kind of stuff, and physically, because I credit a lot of how quick it was on the fact that I was like literally moving my body every single day and like stretching and making sure the baby was in the right position so that it wouldn't be a prolonged like birth. There's a lot that goes into it because it's like, it's one thing if your birth is painful and it's another thing if your birth is painful for a long period of time. So I think that had a lot to do with why I enjoyed my experience at the birth center, is because it was so quick. But anyways, like I said, if you guys want a full like hospital birth story or a birth center story, I can definitely do that. But with that being said, you guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this helped you guys. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, leave a comment down below with any video ideas you guys want me to do, and let's just chat. Let's be friends, and let's continue doing life together. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your guys' day. Bye.